Christy.
If you say there's no one set truth, why would anything you say be true?
There's no water. What did you ask me?
If you say there's no one set truth, why would anything you say be true?
Okay, here's the fun thing. None of this is true. Because the word true has this sort of like discriminatory context to it, which means that when I say something is true, that thing can always be true. And that's not a good thing because that allows for discrimination, and that's the problem with the discursive practices of this flow, right? We have words like true and correct and definition. Those words skew our discursive barriers to just destroy everything we know and love about life. That's what I'm trying to get rid of.
So if nothing's true, and if nothing can be truly proven, then how is your reincarnation case proven?
Okay, here's the fun thing. It's not really proven. Cool.
Why did you put it in?
It's supposed to be a preempt to extinction just in case you beat back the rest of the
I
game.
think we didn't talk about just two.
If nothing's true, then how does your case prove that you should actually win?
Gosh, you're not understanding the argument. Look, gosh, it seems really obvious to me that the problem right now is the discourse we use in the school. That's causing lots of messed up stuff. Like, we're discriminating against people of, like, handicapped nature, right? We're making debate a bad space because negatives can never be prepared to do anything.
So how do we know that's true?
Look, you can make up any definition of the words of the topic you want, and I have to guess. There's no possible way I can prepare for that. I can't just, I might have mind reading powers, but most negatives don't have mind reading powers, right? Most people are not going to know what the app is going to say a certain word in the topic means, right?
Can you just like go through and explain the K like the most simplest part?
What part of the K do you want me to explain?
Explain the whole thing as if you're explaining it to a 5-year-old.
Yes, that's what
Skepticism. You know what skepticism? You guys are
A
5.
5-year-old doesn't know what skepticism is. Explain it to a 5-year-old.
What I'm saying
Guys, take it
is
seriously.
moral uncertainty doesn't affirm. Okay? No one gets moral uncertainty. Like, no, it's not a voting issue for anybody. You can't win because morality is like uncertain. So we should just assume that some things are like not okay. If we don't fight discrimination, philosophy becomes like something we use to dominate other people, right? That's the Pickett analysis. And Pickett says that we have two options when it comes to reforming discourse. We can use the post-dialectic theory, right? Or we can just assume that language is supposed to marginalize people who are underprivileged. And neither of those situations are necessarily preferable, right? Because in some sense they both discount lots of people. Then we have the language defines reality argument, which is Wilson. And Wilson says that we have to kind of deconstruct our deconstruction of sexual identity for us to actually grasp what the world is, right? And that's not something we're doing now because of the barriers of language and discourse. Then next is the analysis above Bianchi, which talks about how language hits these walls when we start thinking about what words mean, because we've narrowed down our perception of what the world is to what the dictionary says world means, right? So because that's true, language therefore becomes, although language should be this indeterminate body which allows for infinite interpretations, right, that can just be played along with whenever we want to, right, it instead becomes a one-way street where we say this is what this means, can never change, that kind of deal. So that skews debate because so while discourse is an infinite space where there's infinite interpretations, the app makes it a one-way street in the 1AC. And the negative is like responsible for just guessing where the one-way street is going to go, if that makes sense. Then the Bianchi analysis explains that when we look to language, the way it should function is when we know a certain word, it has to have another interpretation of the same word, right? So the example Bianchi gives is Aristotle. When we know Aristotle, we understand Aristotle, we know that something else can also be Aristotle, right? And we also know that Kant can be Aristotle, right? And the qualities of Kant can also be Aristotle, right? And Aristotle can be Kant, and Kant can be Rawls, Rawls can be me. But the way discourse is set up now, it doesn't allow that to happen. And that just crashes and burns when we look at how discourse is supposed to shape reality, because in the end it doesn't. It just creates a negative sense, a limited sense of what the world is. Then we have the wheelchair dancer card under bad, which talks about how current systems of current discourse is bad because it discriminates against people who have disabilities, right? And he uses he talks about how the different social movements that have happened in this globe, although they're for a good cause and they're trying to advance their notions of what is right, they leave people of disabilities and of handicapped nature in the dust because they're focused on getting themselves forward, so they don't really pay attention to the words they use to describe things, right? And then we have the underview, which is a response to extinction impacts. The first is a secret card that says reincarnation happens, it's scientifically proven. I know that's probably not conducive to the rest of the critique, yada yada yada. And then the Zolan 7 card that says the alternative leads to nirvana, so even if we do all die, we're all going to become a collective self. Right?
Okay, I have a follow-up question. You say the app can never win, right? It's from the resolution.
It shouldn't ever win.
Okay.
If the judge votes app, then they're a terrible person.
Okay, so if the app should never win, it's not allowed to win, why am I here debating? Why are you here debating? And why is the judge here?
Well, I'm here debating because I'm trying to prove that the structure of debate that we're looking at right now is privileged towards those who affirm, right? I'm saying we need to deconstruct the language barrier so that that doesn't happen anymore, right? And even if the activity that is debate ceases to exist after that happens, there's nothing wrong with that because we've achieved the true reality of what we want discourse to look like.
Would deconstructing the language barrier allow more interpretations?
Well, since I can't say I can't say it's proven because that would not be true. But the idea is when we deconstruct our limitations on anything, we have more options. That seems to make sense, logically. If I say you can't throw this water bottle at me, right? If that rule doesn't exist anymore, you have the option of throwing the water bottle at me.
That's
you
a
have
good
more
thing?
options now.
That's a good thing?
I mean, it depends, right? If I'm a masochist, yeah, sure, I like my pain. Throw one at me so I can feel the pain of having a water ball hit me in the face.
And if you aren't a masochist?
If I am a masochist.
Yes, but what happens if you aren't a masochist and you don't like pain?
Then if you have the pleasure of throwing it at me. Emotions are kind of subjective. Anyone else? Yeah?
So you advocate that there's many interpretations to the resolution, right?
Any resolution. There's infinite numbers of ways to interpret any
Okay,
resolution.
so are there many interpretations to all words?
Yeah.
How about sentences?
Yeah.
So there can be many interpretations to your all?
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that.
So I guess we could argue then that his alternative can't really be achieved if we don't understand
Please
it.
direct the questions to me. It's my CX. You should ask me the questions. Is that directed at me?
No.
Oh, okay, cool. Next person?
Can I go?
Yeah.
Did you already
So-
go?
Oh, did you? Yeah, you went once.
It wasn't gone yet.
Well.
Gallaudet, have you gone yet? No. Jordan, have you gone yet?
Taylor?
Alberto?
Oh wait. So how can we achieve the alt under your K?
Okay. Okay. So the way to achieve the alt is for us to think differently. Like I was saying earlier, we just have to kind of switch our notion of how we view language, right? And kind of break down the barriers we have with meaning, right? Toss our dictionaries in the trash, burn them all. You know.
Couldn't the K
Make everything
link
mean
itself to
everything.
the alt?
What?
Couldn't the K link itself to the alt?
No. Wait. What? I don't understand that question. How does a K link to an alternative?
Wait, never mind.
Okay.
Alex.
Anyone else?
Jordan, what would you say to this position? What would you say?
What would I say?
Yeah. What would you say? You're out of prep. What do you say?
I don't know. I've never,
Why? Why don't you know?
because I've never heard this.
How do you find out?
What?
How do you find out? Gallaudet, how do you answer this position?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay. So if there's no true definition to anything, how can we determine what to do? Why would there not be a standstill?
We shouldn't do anything.
We shouldn't. There should just be a standstill.
Except the alternative, we shouldn't do anything until we've deconstructed the discourse barrier. Yeah.
Alright, you're advocating that debate is flawed, basically.
What?
You're advocating that debate is flawed, right?
Debate is flawed.
Yeah, like with the whole.
The way it's set up now, yeah.
Alright, so then why are you debating?
I've answered this question already. I said that the reason I'm debating is to break back this flawed cycle of discrimination against those who negate resolution.
So why are you the best actor to break this flaw?
Because I'm in the guise of the people who are doing the exploitation. I am, as one of you, persuading you to break free from the shackles of your oppression.
Jacob, why are you laughing?
I thought that was funny in terms like I'm in the guys like, oh, you're a traitor in the mist.
This
Why
is
is that
a
funny?
joke.
Because he's using guys instead of people. Like
I just thought it was a funny weird
Why
way
is it
he
funny?
said-
Gabe, what do you say to this position?
I was gonna ask a question.
Yeah.
Who? I'll talk.
What are your justifications for skepticism?
I say skepticism shouldn't be an issue for either side, but a balance for either side. Wait,
Here,
you already asked the question, right? Yeah, you're the first question.
I can answer. I can give an answer to this.
Yeah, no one.
I can give several answers actually.
Nice.
What? No one has that question.
So the other one's about to ask another.
Jordan hasn't asked a question. Has Allie asked a question?
No.
No, Ali.
Steve, I want to ask a question.
I'll ask one. Like,
Go for it.
like, how did you all like breaking down the discourse barrier? Like, how do you know that'll fix discrimination?
Look, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Whenever we have limits on something, and we lift those limits, we automatically have more options, right? I'll use a different example this time. Let's say your mom says you can't go out of your house between the times of 1 to 2, 4 to 5, and 6 to 7. Then she lifts one of those restrictions. Now you can't leave the house between 4 and 5, and that's it. So she lifted 2. Okay, you have more options. Now you have 2 other times you can go out. Then she lifts the 3rd restriction, and now you can go out whenever you want. Infinite possibilities. Does that make sense?
What did the first card say?
The
The
security.
picket card.
What's the first card?
The
What is
picket
the
card.
First card. Break it down. What's the first card?
Picket.
Picket. What does picket say?
Remember.
What is it? What does it say? Look at your flow.
Reject permissibility? No? Did I make that up in my head?
Probably. Sounds like it.
That argument was earlier on before the picket card.
Okay, but I'm.
What does
It was,
picket say?
Talking about scam.
okay.
Who knows what picket says?
You have to choose between something, but I don't remember what.
Why isn't this a question you've asked him? You don't know what a card says?
Someone asked me.
Go ahead and say.
Why would
Okay. Actually, someone did ask me this question earlier.
What did they say? What was the response? So everyone should know. What?
You have to choose between expression and culture.
Why? Did you ask him?
What's the warrant in cricket?
Alright. Pickett's warrant is that in the SWO, there's only 2 theories of what language means. Right? That means our choice has to be between those 2. Do you remember what the theories are? Should I repeat them?
Was it patriarchy and capitalism?
No.
Was it the post-analytic theory?
Post-dialectical theory and post-cultural discourse. Or it's actually neo-patriarchal nationalism, the second one.
What is that?
Who knows?
Why are we not asking? I can't ask again
You
until.
guys can. Now you can all ask
now
one.
anyone can ask.
I just want everyone to engage.
I need to see a hand.
What does the neo-patriarchal nationalism say?
What is neo-patriarchal nationalism?
Neo-patriarchal nationalism is this, what is the word I'm looking for? It's this
The advent.
philosophy that that is giving new birth to the patriarchy controlling the state. Because that movement's kind of going away because of feminism, so they're trying to make a comeback with language.
like sexist language there.
Yeah.
What does the rest of the card say?
Okay, does the second card say that language defines reality?
No,
Okay.
that's the next part.
Oh, can I ask about that card then?
Sure.
Okay, so language defines reality, right?
So that's the tag, but I would argue that Wilson isn't explicitly stated.
Okay, well,
Then what does he explicitly say?
Okay, so
Think
Wilson
about this.
says.
Okay, what does Wilson say?
Wilson talked about
Did
patriarchy.
anybody get down who Wilson was? Has anybody asked who Wilson is?
Well, I got a different question entirely. Like from aside from all this card business. What's to stop me from doing a forget permutation?
No, Alex, no. 5 cards.
No?
What even is that?
What's to stop though?
Because it's a
5
bad
cards,
term.
Alex.
This is what they taught us in the answering K's thing.
They said this is what could happen. They didn't say make those answers. Guys, come on.
He doesn't have an answer?
So we have some ideas about what these arguments say. Who makes these arguments? Come on. What's the next step?
What's the word? Okay, if Wilson doesn't say explicitly the tagline, why do you use him as the author?
Does nothing.
That's what he implies. So I can re-explain Wilson if you'd like.
Wait, so he says something and then implies?
Okay, I'm saying he doesn't explicitly state the tag in the card.
We need to, it'll help them if you read the sentence, the second sentence, the paragraph in the works of Rushdie. If expressionism holds.
Oh.
That's
Many
it.
desublimations.
Yeah.
That one? Many desublimations concerning pre-patriarchalist Marxism exist.
No, the one, if expression holds, we have to choose between.
If expressionism holds, we have to choose between Sontage's camp and subcultural discourse.
Therefore,
The subject is contextualized into a pre-patriarchalist Marxism that includes truth as a reality.
Can you explain that in simple terms?
Sure. So the sentence says, therefore the subject is contextualized into a pre-patriarchalist Marxism that includes truth as a reality. So what he's saying, what Wilson is saying here, is that whenever we move towards the deconstructivism of capitalism, we go to this like primitive, like prior to Marxism stage of language, right? Which, although primitive, it still arrives at like what real truth means, right? So since we don't know what truth means now in the way discourse looks, the deconstruction that we do in this scenario allows us to achieve real truth.
why would we do something capitalism?
Okay, so deconstructing capitalism is key because all of our notions of discourse, especially language, in the status quo, especially like in the Western world where this debate round is happening, are a product of capitalism. So deconstructing capitalism is very key to that.
Jordan, what did he say?
I don't know.
Okay, so why don't you ask him to explain it again? It's okay not to.
Explain it again.
Sure. So I'm saying that all our problems with language and discourse are there because, like, especially in the Western world where this debate round is happening, are all like product of capitalism. So when we deconstruct capitalism, right, it allows us to gain access to like what the real truth is, right? We get out of like this language bond.
I thought you said we had to change our mindset, not change our way of economy.
Okay, look. When I say we deconstruct capitalism, I don't mean we like take the banks and throw them in the river.
No, what
I mean like we change the ideology that goes with capitalism.
Yeah, what does he say? Deconstruct. What does that mean?
Reconstruct.
What?
Is it not a double negative?
Who writes this card? This should be another thing you can say.
Wilson is a member of the Department of Peace Studies at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. He wrote this in 2003.
That's funny.
If you go to the 2003, how do you know this language words definition has changed?
Because I'm reading in the context of how we limit language now in the status quo. I still have I interpret it the way that most people in the school interpret his language.
Jacob.
We think in language, right?
I don't think in language. I think in ideas.
Aren't you using? Aren't you
I
using?
can't take it.
Alright,
Okay.
let's help.
Why are you guys losing?
Well, you said I couldn't.
Because we can only ask questions.
Because you said
Why
I
are you losing right now?
Because
We
I
can
can't
only
run a
ask
perm.
questions.
Matt, Katie, ask your question again. Your most recent question, ask it again.
Who is Wilson?
He's a member of the Department of Peace Studies at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst in 2003. He wrote that.
What's a peace study?
Peace studies are studies of how we achieve peace.
Oh, that's not what I thought you meant like the letter P. Never
Oh,
mind.
no. Peace studies. Peace.
What is Amherst?
I don't know.
What is Amherst?
I believe it's a metaphor.
No, it's read the citation again.
A member of the Department of Peace Studies, the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, in 2003.
What is Amherst? Is Amherst a real place?
I don't know.
Yes, it's a real place.
What does it say? Don't tell me this was all for nothing.
Okay, read another citation. What's another card that doesn't make sense?
Pick it.
Oh,
I don't know.
was going to ask for Bianchi. That's what
Yeah, that's what we are.
I was gonna ask about wheelchair dancer because
Pickett, right? The Departments of Semiotics, Stanford University.
What is semiotic? Oh, I know what that is. Just kidding.
I don't know what it is. What is it?
is he an does that mean they're an expert on this exact topic of linguistics?
I would say so. I mean, he has a degree in semiotics.
Semiotics is the study of how language informs each
Oh,
other.
well,
So what does Pickett say?
lame.
We just talked about it. It was how you could.
What is the warrant in Pickett, Ovid?
The warrant in Pickett, wait, like the actual warrant?
What is the warrant in Pickett?
The warrant in Pickett is that we only have two options when it comes to deciding language because that's how the status quo is set up. We
Why?
have to choose. That's just how it is.
Why?
That's just how it is.
Why?
I don't have to defend myself to you.
Where's that derived from?
That's derived from
How many people
analysis.
are in the semiotics department at Stanford?
546.
Where'd you get that?
From Stanford's website.
Yeah, can I see the site for that?
It's right here. Department of Semiotics, Stanford University.
Does it say how many people are in it?
I just have that memorized. I didn't expect someone
Oh, you have it memorized. Okay. What's post-capitalist class?
Where does it say post-capitalist class?
The Rubicon of post-capitalist class.
Post-capitalist class is the social standing we arrive at after we have disingenuate ourselves from
Wait a second. If capitalism is the root of class, then how can class exist in a post-capitalist society?
I'm talking about social standing, not like
Social
class
standing is the root of class. So what derives from social class?
I'm not talking about social class. I said the standing we have after we've delineated ourselves from what class means.
So we've delineated ourselves, so we no longer have a meaning of what we were assigned, and
We don't
therefore
have
we
social
no longer have a meaning of what we were assigned, and somehow we're still assigned somewhere.
Everyone has the same standing.
What is
That's that means.
Sardist absurdity?
Sardist absurdity.
I mean, I know no exit was like a terrible plan, but like.
Well, I was just talking about absurdity in general.
Okay, so this is not the same.
No, but the card is specifically cut to say if absurdity works, not if Sardist absurdity works.
The card was specifically cut. Okay.
I don't know.
Pre-patriarchalist Marxism. What does that even mean?
I told you already. Pre-patriarchalist Marxism.
When was a pre-patriarchal society in place?
In the Soviets, well, I guess where the Russia is now.
Where the
before
Russia is? Come on,
Where the
Ovid.
Where
Come
Russia
on.
is now, but before Marx was born. Before Marx came up with those ideas.
Pre-patriarchalist Marxism. What does this mean? What does this mean? What does it mean?
Marxism.
What does it mean, guys?
Patriarchy to Russia.
Does anyone have a clue? After like 30,
All of
45
this,
minutes
you've
what
been
he's saying?
quizzing him for like a half an hour. Do you have any idea what he's saying?
No.
Why do you believe he's telling you the truth?
We don't.
Why not? I'm pretty
Because he said truth is subjective.
Then how do you answer the argument?
No.
Permutation.
That strat always perm 7 times before you make a real argument. Don't actually do that.
You don't know if we knew we would have done it.
Okay, guys.
Who after hearing this for the first time might have been confused, but thought there was some merit to the deal?
Who still wants to run this argument?
Well, I could do it.
It sounds like fun.
I do not want to run that.
If they end up
What is the argument?
if they end up as confused as I, it's
He's
deconstructing
already
language.
Stop. Pause. If somebody doesn't have an argument, right? Why did you let him go? You let him answer a question and then you stopped. Why? He asked how to explain something, he said some more gibberish, and then what did you do? You accepted it and moved on.
Because we're asking him questions.
What?
We're asking him questions.
Because it's not the same person. They don't,
Statements are
and we don't have
questions.
telepathy.
Oh my god, you guys are really blaming us on not working together?
Yes.
Okay,
10 cards out.
if
What?
one person can tell me what the actual argument is.
Which one?
The argument, what is my position? Someone tell me.
Yeah, like language.
Come on, it's not that hard to
Yeah,
understand.
it's subjective. You can't believe in what language
She's
is.
raising her hand.
These are all claims. Where are the warrants? Did you guys flow the warrants?
Can't distinguish between the two.
So,
Come on, guys,
Abed,
come on.
what was the alternative word for word?
Okay,
Come on.
mindful re-examining of the discursive limits of the status quo.
Alright, so how do you do that?
So what happens, we have to wrap our mind around like what the problems with language are right now, and we have to think about how we're going to just deconstruct those problems.
Cool, I just thought about how I'm going to do that. Does that solve?
Yeah, but you're not affirming anymore because you don't have that interpretation of the resolution.
I thought about it. I still have the same interpretation. Why is this solve?
If you have an interpretation, then you still violate. That doesn't make sense.
Why do I have to... I mindfully interpreted stuff.
Right, but if you
Why does this solve?
You haven't deconstructed anything.
Yeah, but why do I have to do that in order to
How
solve?
did you deconstruct someone?
Yeah.
I deconstructed
What is the alternative solve?
language. I
How?
deconstructed all of language. We don't have
Using language.
meant language.
You use language to deconstruct language, which language is the problem, so you're
So
still
why
using
is this position
language.
unique?
This position is unique because
Assuming it has a warrant.
obviously it has a warrant.
Yeah, where's the warrant, Albert?
Point to it.
Look,
Point to the warrant
this
in the
is-
card.
This is all warrant. Right here.
All
5
warrant.
pages of
All
warrant.
5 pages. See, Chris, no date. Okay. Primarily, biographer of artists and art collectors.
Yeah.
What's sad is that you didn't make up that card. I made up the other ones.
I actually read that card.
Post-dialectic theory. That's not a thing. Neo-patriarchal nationalism. Also not a real thing.
It sounds like
Post-capitalist class. Not a real thing.
How are we supposed to know that?
Predominant concept of the distinction between opening and closing. What is this, Harry Potter?
yes.
Antagonist subcultural discourse? That's nothing.
How are we supposed to know that?
Patriarchalist
I can
Marxism?
explain it.
That
As
can't
for the
be
war.
real. Is any of this real?
I have like a 10th
The-
grade education.
No, it's
I don't
not.
know.
What are you already saying?
None of it's real.
The point
Guys,
is,
listen.
the point is, even if you are uncertain about whether something is or is not real, they should be able to explain why something's true, and that explanation is what will determine whether the term is real or not, what he's trying to say. If he can't explain what, I don't know, something Marxism, but whatever this weird made up word is, if he can't contextualize that and explain what that is and then why that's true, then it doesn't matter what the word is, right? So if you're confused about the terminology, have them explain it, call them out on it, question it, and go from that point.
So who thinks they can explain the purpose of this?
The purpose of what?
Let me know. I really don't have that.
He already said that things aren't true anyway, so I guess like to him it doesn't really matter.
But why is that true? You're conceding that.
Conceding what? I'm not saying that I agree with it, but I just
You
said he said
allow
it.
him to have that link. Why?
Because we just.
What do you mean?
Why do we agree that there's no
I don't
truth?
understand what that question means.
Why do we agree that there's no truth? Why
Yeah,
can't there
you
be
say
truth?
that there is absolute truth.
Especially when he says neither side gets to have skepticism.
Doesn't he have skepticism? Moral skepticism.
He said no side can have skepticism. And then he goes on to say how everything is skeptical. How does that make sense?
Doesn't.
Exactly. Why did it take you so long?
Because I
Because
can't
we're
see
not
his
right.
face.
Oh, pause. Why did it take you so long, Taylor?
Because I did not understand the argument whatsoever.
So why didn't you ask questions? We had to make you ask a question. Why were you afraid?
Because I didn't know what to ask.
Why?
Because I didn't know what was going on.
So what did you say?
That's the point.
What does this mean? What do you do in debate? Jordan, what do you do in this position?
I would say it's contradictory.
Okay, contradicting, definitely good point. What else?
There is no link. The truth is there are absolute truths.
Okay, what else?
Can't achieve the all.
Okay, great.
That if the app sets constructs based on language that the neg can't go against, then why does he get to go against the app constructs that they say?
Okay, so these are all good arguments, assuming that his arguments are true. Let's go up a higher level. How do we know his arguments are true?
Question.
Question him. What do we question him on?
Everything.
Warrants, what else?
Authors.
Wait.
Authors. Who are these authors? Everybody pull up Google right now. Tell me what the peace studies at the Massachusetts, at the University of Amherst. Just Google it.
University of Massachusetts Amherst.
Can you write it up on the board?
No, you should have been listening. It should be on your phone.
Department of Peace Studies, University of Massachusetts, Amherst, Amherst, 2003.
What does Google say?